Welcome to another episode of the Bambooszn podcast. I am your host, sober fitness coach Dorian Wormsley. Today's episode, I have an amazing guest. She is an author and a speaker. Now, before I hop into her, I wanted to ask you a question. Have you ever made a decision with yourself, hey, I'm done drinking, I'm about to change my habits, but then the weekend shows up and it's like you never even made that promise to yourself. Now, it's not your willpower, it's an internal conflict that I'm here to help you deal with. On my upcoming free webinar, September 17th, we'll dive into the psychology behind achieving sobriety. I'll put the link in my bio, free webinar, September 17th. Now, one thing that's helped me improve as a person, as a man, as a human on this earth is the ability to change my perspective on how I saw myself and how I saw life. Today's guest, once again, like I said, is an author and a speaker. She's interviewed over 150 people about their perspectives and even wrote a book titled Dimensions, where it asks you 100 questions about your perspective and how to change it. She's also has done a TED Talk. I'll bring you Sadie Sanchez.
Hello.
Hola, Sadie.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Are you nervous?
I am a little nervous. I'll
Okay.
admit, I'm used to being on the other side in your position of asking the question. So it feels a little bit uncomfortable being on this side of the interview, but I'm here for it.
But we know that's where the growth comes.
Yes.
Now, one thing that was very interesting to me is, so I met you about 2-3 weeks ago. You were a vendor at one of my Black Business Expo. Thank you again for showing up and bringing your mom, bringing your fiance, delivering your book. I see you got a couple sales there. People were, interested in what you do.
Yeah.
If you can, give us a little bit about who you are and kind of what you do now.
Yeah. Born and raised in Las Vegas, grew up here. As a person, I would say that I'm just a curious, creative soul. I've always been fascinated by human beings, and I feel like that drives a lot of the work that I've done now. So my career path has been anything from has been far from linear, but now in a capacity where I'm able to help people understand their perspective and take what I've learned from learning about people's perspectives, exploring my own perspective, and put it on a wider platform to give people the tools and resources to self-discover.
Interesting. Now, what would you say was the thing that triggered you to think, I need to write this book or I need to interview people about their perspectives? Was there anything in your life that happened or?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that there are a lot of breadcrumbs leading up to it throughout my life that I could reflect back on and see foreshadowing as to where I'm at right now. But really the catalyst of my whole project and when it started was in 2020. 2020 was a crazy year politically, socially, and there was just a height of a lot of emotions. And on a macro level, I was experiencing that with leaders and in communities and even, politicians, but it was also impacting families on a micro level, not talking anymore because of a difference in perspective that happened within my own family. And I'm like, perspective is a word that I use so frequently. It's a word that I hear frequently, but the meaning of it sounds vacant. What is it? How does it have the power to divide us so much? And so that's where my curiosity for perspective kind of began. And at first it was very, very informal. At first it just started with friends. I sent them out a survey on Google Forms and was like, okay, fill out some of these questions about your perspective, include some demographic information. And I would kind of compare the different answers. And then from there, I started doing more long form interviews. And it was a perfect storm too, because in COVID, I had a lot of time. I was at home. So I got to spend hours on the phone just dissecting and trying to understand perspective. So at first, my mission was really to just share as many perspectives as I could with the world, hoping that it would be a solution to the divide. But then I found myself realizing that I didn't understand my own perspective and my world within was crumbling a bit. And so that's what changed my trajectory into where I'm at now and really just trying to provide people with the tools to find themselves.
Now, do you think your perspective was built on your upbringing?
Oh, for sure.
Up until that point where you kind of started questioning it?
Oh, for sure. I feel like when talking about a perspective, the concept of an inherited reality is really important. we all come to this earth as a blank canvas. And it's not until you get older that you can start questioning that reality. A lot of how we view the world comes from our parents and how they've influenced. And I think that when you really stop and take the time to think about that, it can be transformative, and it can allow you to think, did I actually have an experience that formed this opinion, or is this somebody else's reality that I inherited?
Yeah. And it's crazy you say that, because I think it's another thing that's crazy. I catch myself, I watched a few of my episodes. I always do this ear thing. I don't know what it's about. But anyways, it's funny when you watch yourself. I've done like 8 episodes, episode 8 now. There's certain things I catch myself doing, and I notice starts to make me question and think, I wonder what that's from. Is that nervousness? Is that just a habit? But anyways.
Maybe you can't hear.
Look, I know I can't see. I have a lazy eye sometimes, and it's just, but anyways, I recently heard this, I don't know what to call him. His name is Billy Carson. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he had said kind of what you said, inherited from our parents, how a lot of things are inherited. Like, we come from a blank canvas when we're here, and everything we're inherited from our name, our religion, our belief system. And I think it's just interesting to see that you are making this book and starting to question people's perspective, when a lot of us don't even do that. We kind of just go with what we're taught, what we're known within our family, within our culture, for most people throughout their whole lives.
Yeah.
You know, so I liked when I came across you, because I'm like, I'm somebody that questions everything. Like, I don't go with the flow just because you say this and that. I believe the world is very gray, not black and white at all. And I think once you get older, you become more aware. You question, I know I did question a lot of shit from a young age, to where I thought I was like weird because I wasn't following the norm that everybody else was following. What you call sheep, you know?
Yeah. I actually relate to you a lot in that respect. I feel like I've always been someone that has kind of existed in the gray space. And for a lot of my life, that was hard. I think that especially to find a sense of belonging, it's hard to exist in the gray space, but I feel like I'm at the point now where I've embraced it. And part of why through my work I've decided to do questions is I think that there's a lot of information out there that is, trying to offer guidance based on my personal experience. You ought to do this, you ought to do that. But the power of a question is that it allows you to draw the information out of yourself that you need. I don't have the answers to what people need, and my book doesn't aim to provide concrete answers. It's a framework for you to ask yourself questions and draw that out of you and hold up a mirror to yourself to find whatever it is that you're looking for.
Damn. Questions are very important.
The most important.
No, they are. And
questions are the key.
They are, because I've been asked certain questions. Like, I went on a date with a girl one time, and she at the time was a coach, like a life coach. And just the type of questions she had asked me were different than I've ever been asked. And I'm like, what? And to where maybe ask and question myself. Like, I had to sit and think, like, oh my God, like really process what she had asked me, because I never dug that deep into my own self. And it's just very interesting that you say that. I also heard, do you know what John C. Maxwell is?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had said a great quote where he said, if you want a positive, what did he say? If you want a positive outcome, ask yourself a positive question.
That's a great one.
Yeah, and I thought it was just interesting.
I think too, really great quote that I heard, I'm blanking on who it is, but the quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions you're willing to ask yourself.
Okay.
And I think that that's really important as well. Questions are keys that plant seeds that allow you to do that.
With your book, how did you come up with the 100 questions? Was it, yeah.
So it's a combination.
Or is it 150? I'm sorry.
It's 100 questions.
Okay.
So the work very first began by doing interviews. And so throughout the interview process, I kind of refined questions that would extract people's inherited reality, what I believe to be like their core identity and certain experiences that they've had. But actually, a lot of the questions came from reverse engineering archives of myself. And so as I was on this path to self-discovery and really trying to find a sense of peace in my own mind, I really meticulously archived myself and the different versions of Sadie. And so I would go back to those entries and sit with how I was feeling at the time, what I was experiencing, and try to find what the question was from that. And so that's how I know that these questions are helpful, because I have lived those experiences. Yeah. And then, of course, I find inspiration everywhere. I think as a creative, you tend to. You're hyper observant. You want to see what there is, and being inspired by nature, quotes, art, people, interactions, parents. So it's kind of a culmination.
I talked to you about this the other day, but when you say when you're creative, you're able to pull inspiration from anything. For me, once I became more self-aware and I started doing a journey of like just improving myself, my communication, just trying to be an inspiring and motivating person, I would pull inspiration from almost anything, like a song by Future, a song by Gucci. Like it ain't always, Joel Osteen or Eric Thomas or Tony Robbins. It's like I would listen to a song and I'm like, damn, okay, I'm about to fuck up some commas. But it wouldn't literally be that. I would pull inspiration in a different way, in a different light. And also, what I told you the other day was I was watching Deadpool.
Yeah.
And I watched it the other day, and towards the end of the movie, he had a drinking problem. And for me, I always called myself an X-Men in relation to Wolverine because of, I fell from a 4-story window. And I pretty much regenerated myself, kind of similar to Wolverine's, superpower. And I would jokingly call myself that. But in this movie, he had a drinking problem. I'm like, damn, that's kind of relatable, really. That's what I used to have. And then at the end of the movie, Deadpool asked the lady, like, hey, are you able to help Wolverine go back and alter his universe? And she said to him, like, well, if I go back and alter his universe, he wouldn't become the man now to help save ours.
Right.
And it just hit me like, damn, a lot of people try to forget their past. I think it's important that you own it, because what you went through makes you the woman or the man that you are now. You know what I mean? I think it's about owning it and be able to grow through it. For you, what were some things you had to learn about yourself and grow through before you became the speaker and author you are now? Yeah, dig deep.
I learned a lot of hard lessons at a young age. I made a lot of mistakes.
Okay.
I think everybody has trials and tribulations that they're navigating, and I just didn't always know the best way to handle the weight of my emotions. I was a very emotional child, and there was a lot that played into that as well with my parent dynamics and different home situations. But yeah,
What was your parent dynamic?
I grew up with a single mom.
She's Mexican.
Yes, she's Mexican and Irish.
Okay.
Yeah. So grew up with a single mom. My dad was not in the picture very much. He was there and then he wasn't, and then he was there and then he wasn't. And so it was a very unstable relationship with him as I was growing up, which was very hard. I think that, I listened to your first episode when you were talking about your father as well, and related to a lot of what you said. It's really hard feeling that sense of like deep rejection from your parents. I'm like, I'm your firstborn child.
Yeah.
How much more immediate family does this get? Like, why aren't you here? And I feel like, as I've gotten older, I've established a really good relationship with my dad. And so sometimes it's hard to talk about it in that respect, because I do have a lot of love for him right now. I always have, but there were a lot of times that I felt disappointed, and he just was not who I needed or wanted him to be.
Now, was he, around what age do you kind of feel like he was MIA? If you can remember, or was it always in and out since you were, a baby?
I know that for like the first couple of years of my life, he wasn't around. And then he married my stepmom, and she was very heavily advocating for him to be around me more, which I'm very grateful to her for. I feel like he started coming around the picture more. And then I also have 2 younger siblings. And so I feel like when they were born, they lived in Vegas for a while, and that was a time that I was seeing them a lot more regularly. But I don't know, when I was maybe 12 or so, they moved to New Mexico, and so I saw them a lot less frequently, which was really hard. But
what age did you so when you said how he wasn't in your life, you kind of mended that relationship, and then now you're in a great place. So for me, that's the part I've struggled with, because I'm aware he wasn't in my life, things like that. He tries to reach out, my dad, I'm speaking of, and a part of me wants to be like, all right, let me just let it go. And, you know, he made a mistake, but then a part of me is like, no, fuck that. Why do I have to be the one? But as I say that, as I just say that now, it's like, that's why, because I'm the one that's going to be, in a sense, suffering from it, I guess. Interesting. Damn. But
I relate to that a lot because, I mean, I feel like the weight and that expectation is on the parent of like, you brought me into this world. Why am I shouldering the burden of this experience? But for me personally, I really wanted a relationship with my dad. I feel like just in my journey and self-discovery, you learn a lot about who you are from your parents. And as I've gotten closer to my dad, I feel like I have been able to understand a lot more about myself. I see a lot of myself in him. And so I'm grateful to have been able to bridge that gap and learn from him what I need to at this point in my life now. But it definitely took relinquishing expectations of how I wanted him to show up and just accepting him for who he is outside of the expectations that I placed on him.
what age were you when you started to realize, like, or make the decision, I need to fix this relationship with my dad?
It's hard to pinpoint an age because I feel like it was a time period. I would say early 20s.
Okay.
But it's actually interesting that you bring that up because the primary motivation for that, again, which I relate to heavily on this, you were talking about how the lack of that relationship with your dad was something that drove you in your life, right?
Yeah.
I related to that so heavily.
100%.
And it got to a point where I'm like, I'm always seeking this validation and it doesn't exist in the way that I want it to. And I feel like for me, I kind of got tired of chasing it. And so I feel like a lot of that was the catalyst for me to be like, okay, how am I going to find some sort of internal motivator to do what it is that I need to do outside of wanting him to see me?
Yeah. Damn. Were you, during the time period where he wasn't in your life or in and out, you know, and you didn't see him as much, especially high school or teenage years to high school to right after high school, do you think you had those daddy issues that people, you know, talk about?
Oh, 100%.
Really?
I was with the most questionable men doing the most questionable things. But really it was just a deep seeking of validation. I wanted somebody to see me. And, you know, I look back on certain things and I'm like, God, why did I do that? So I would definitely say it impacted my relationships a lot. And I think too, diminished a lot of my self-worth, allowing me to like be treated poorly in relationships.
So when that time period where he wasn't around, was it like you would reach out and he wouldn't, you know, get back to you, or was kind of just, you guys didn't speak?
I would say there was never a point that we just didn't speak at all. Communication was just very spotty. Like we just spoke very infrequently, and especially after he moved, I didn't see him a whole lot. But there were certain times when he was in my life a lot more. Like in middle school, I went to a middle school near his house, and so he would pick me up daily. So it was just inconsistent, which I think is a very difficult dynamic with parents.
And when you guys started to, you know, get better from your 20s up until now, was he able to almost give you a reasoning of his in and out inconsistencies?
Yeah, my dad and I have had very open discussions and conversations, and I know that he endured a lot of hardship, especially when I was younger. We had some very tragic things happen within his family, which I knew he bared the burden of. Like, it was a very difficult time for him, and I think that there were a lot of times that he probably didn't know the best way to handle the emotions of certain things. But I have nothing but respect for my dad, because I think that parent dynamics in general can be very interesting to navigate. They're everything for you. They're supposed to be your friend. They're supposed to be your provider. They're supposed to be your mentor. They're supposed to be in all of these different capacities. You have a biological connection to them. You see yourself in them. And I think that with the complexity of those relationships, sometimes pride gets in the way on the side of the parents. And I shouldn't say sometimes, I want to say most of the time. But I think that what really allowed my dad and I to rebuild that relationship is that he always acknowledged my truth and his simultaneously. And I feel like that's a very important thing for parents to do. Like, I understand that you were in your life and living your perspective, but that doesn't mean that it didn't have this impact on me. It doesn't mean that it didn't affect me this way. And, you know, as we had those conversations, I learned more about what he was navigating. He allowed me to share a lot of those parts with him and never invalidated it. And so I really respect and appreciate him for that, because I think that there are a lot of parents that wouldn't be willing to put pride aside to do that.
And does he have, besides the two younger siblings, right, with his wife?
Yeah.
Besides them, did he have any other kids?
Yeah, I have one other sister.
Older or younger?
She's younger. She's about 18 months younger than me.
Okay. With same mom?
No.
Okay. Yeah, so my thing was, for me, it was hard because, like I said, my dad wasn't around for 20 years. And then during that 20-year period, he went and had like 10 other kids.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So
that's a lot.
For me, I was like, damn, that's the hardest part has been for me, is trying to let go of that, or, you know what I mean? Feeling like I was pushed to the side.
Yeah.
You know, like, I have one younger sister with him who we talk now. We were close when we were younger. We're 5 years apart. But then once I moved to Vegas, him and his ex-wife went and had, I think, a total like 10 together. Then he has me. So he has like 13 kids.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I always felt like, what the fuck? Like you said earlier, the first one, I got the same name. And yeah, so that's the hardest part been for me, is like feeling not excluded, but like just, all right, well, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then when he comes back around.
Brought you here, figure it out.
Yeah. But then, you know, it circles when I reached out, we try to fix things up a little bit. And his whole perspective is kind of like, get over it. You know, you're okay. It could have been worse. You turned out well. This and that. I'm like, what the fuck?
That's hurtful.
It is, because
it's invalidating.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, everything that I felt and experienced in your absence doesn't matter.
Yeah. Because I get it. I definitely could have statistically turned out worse. You know, people who grew up without dads, in and out of jail, pimps, drug dealing, all these things, which some of those things I did dabble into at some point in my younger years. But one thing I told myself when I went to jail a few times, and the last time I went to jail I did 2 months for taking a friend's car without asking, all this stuff. And I remember when I got out, I told myself, I was like, you know what? I refuse to be another like statistic of a minority without a dad in his life. Like, I'm not, that's it. And that was part of my whole drive, my whole life, was I'm gonna prove him something wrong, you know what I mean? And then also the world, like, yeah, I didn't have a dad, but I'm not finna turn out into a drug dealing fucking loser. I'm gonna be an example that you could turn your life around and, you know, be somewhat positive within the world without, you know, your dad around. But the thing I was using to drive me, like not having my dad to prove a point, I got to a point in growth to where that was what was holding me back.
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing driving me was holding me back. So then that's when I decided to reach out maybe 2 years ago. And we saw each other for the first time in 20 years.
Wow. How was that?
I was a little nervous and stuff like that, but I told myself that I'm going to just keep it surface level and see it as almost like a meet and greet. Kind of just talk, keep it surface level, and just plant that seed. And then depending how it goes down the line, start patching things and fixing things. So we sat down, my cousin sat us down, and we just talked, and I just asked questions about certain people that I remember from when he was in my life. Because up until 12 years old, he was in my life. Like, I would go stay with him in the summer, whatever. But then we moved to Vegas, and that's when I stopped seeing him. And then yeah, like I said, kept it very surface level. Part of it was me being a little nervous, and I sensed his nervousness.
Mm-hmm.
And he even told me, he was like, "Man, I didn't know what thought you're gonna hit me." And I was like, "Damn." I mean, I don't feel that much of anger, but yeah. And that was that. And after that, he would text me, you know, here and there. But I don't know, man. A part of me, I'm like 30-something years old. I've done everything I've done. I've learned a lot already. Like, I had to learn how to be a man on my own, how to treat a woman on my own, all these things. A lot of bad decisions, but it's almost like, for what? Why do I need to patch this up now?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at now with it. Still open to fixing it or whatever. But then more recently, he pulled some fuck shit where he wanted my mom to take him off child support because he owes for however many years and can't get a passport and shit. So I'm like, that's not my problem. You know, like,
yeah, that's between them.
yeah. But she went on and took him off and stuff, but I don't know. He'll send me the Bible verses and shit and all this stuff. And I'm like, bro, I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting how throughout your life parents become different people and take on different roles. And at the very point that I'm at, I talk to my dad weekly. Like, I talk to him all the time, and I actually feel like he's mentoring me through a lot of things that I need right now, and not even in a direct sense of like, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, but almost like he's a mirror to me. I see a lot of personality traits, a lot of desires, a lot of mannerisms in him, and so to be able to have that connection and kind of learn off of him was a capacity that I didn't really see him being in my life, but I'm at the point now that I'm really grateful that he is. But it's interesting because, you know, even talking about it, there's this part of me that feels kind of guilty because I'm like, I talk to him all the time. I love him. But the reality of it is, you know, it was a huge part of my story in shaping who I am now and why I question perspective so much, why I feel like I didn't belong, why I dealt with a lot of feelings. And so as uncomfortable as it is to acknowledge, I feel like you almost have to.
Yeah. And what about your mother? How are things, you know, because you're raised for her by, you know, 20-something years, and without your father around, did you have any stepfathers? How was the dynamic with your mom growing up? You know what I mean? How was that?
Yeah. I felt like for the first couple of years of my life, because my mom also had... So I had another sister through my mom, and she was born when I was like 5.5. Okay. But I would say for the first little bit of my life, it just felt like me and my mom against the world, to be honest. Yeah. She's literally one of my best friends and has just supported me in ways that I can't even name. I feel like I'll never be able to repay her. Tina. Yeah.
What up, Tina Sanchez? We met. She is amazing. I met her at the expo, but continue, sorry.
No, I'm just so grateful to her. I think that there are a lot of lessons on parenting that I will take forward for my future children that I've learned from her.
So did you have a stepdad around or no?
I did. Like I said, there's just been a lot of inconsistencies in the family dynamics. I did have a stepdad around from the time I was like 9 to 14.
Okay.
Yeah, she remarried. He's gone now.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, they're not together anymore. Yeah. We don't talk, but yeah.
And was there ever moments where like you and your mom butted heads?
I mean, yeah. I feel like anytime you love somebody that deeply, like you're bound to butt heads. But I think for the most part, my mom and I are able to have difficult conversations, confront things head on. And so I'm able to talk to her about a lot of things. And yeah, I honestly don't even have enough good things to say about my mom. I don't know how I would have turned out without having her as a parent. She sacrificed so much for me. And I think even the way that she chose to raise me was very free thinking. I think a lot of parents try to control their children's beliefs and how they should be. And my mom always just encouraged me to continue being curious. She would just say, find what makes sense to you. Whatever, like she would just really encourage me to explore, which I'm very grateful for.
It's crazy because my mom was very much the same way.
Mm-hmm.
To where there was never really no rules. She never pushed anything on me to do this, do that. All she ever really wanted me to do and push me to do was make sure I graduated high school when I was younger. And then once I got out of high school, she's wanted me to do something. She would always send me certain things. She would say, oh, maybe you could do this trade or maybe you can do that. And that's one thing I do appreciate about her because I never felt like I was pushed a certain belief system in the world, religion, or anything. I was able to figure it out myself.
Yeah.
And even to this day, she supports, everything I do. So it's interesting that literally our moms are damn near the same, and they're both Mexican.
I know.
But
my mom was strict though.
Was she?
Yeah, I wouldn't get that confused.
Well, I mean, you're a girl, so man, that's probably why it's different.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Since a young kid, I was always in the streets. Not like in the streets doing gang activities, but
I was not in the streets. She would not let me be in the streets.
My personality, and I'm very outgoing, and I can just, since I was a kid, like to where she would tell me to be home at this time, but the rest of the whole day I'm gone. I was always making friends, getting in trouble and stuff, stealing, but always let me roam, and then I'd always, come back. And for the most part, I stayed out of trouble. Up until high school, I got into a little bit of trouble, but that I think was part of not having a dad around and being the class clown.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how that's like the thing. Like, I remember I had a psychiatrist after my accident, and she was asking me questions, right? This is 2016, asking me questions, and I'm like, okay, answering them. And based off the questions she asked me, she was able to damn near put together my damn life. Like, oh, Dad, okay, were you a class clown? Okay, yep. And everything. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, damn, it's just crazy how the mind works. That class clown turned into alcoholism. Did you ever dabble into substances? If you're allowed to say, I don't want you to get in trouble. Sorry,
Define
Tina.
substances. No, I'm kidding. You mean like drinking? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, substance. Drinking, liquor, Molly, coke, meth.
No meth.
The reason I say because I had a friend on, my boy Adam, and I was talking to him about sobriety and stuff like that, and I was telling a story how one time I did meth on accident.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it was this girl I was seeing. She said it was coke. We thought. Next thing you know, I'm up for like 4 days.
Damn.
Eyeballs like this, and I'm like, what the fuck? It took me like 4 days before I was like normal again.
Yeah.
So I don't judge, if
No.
I'm not saying you did it, but
I've tried some things.
Oh, good for you. Okay.
But I mean, not crazy things. I mean, like I've smoked weed, of course.
Really? How dare you?
What does that say?
I'm just kidding. And so then, okay, and then to my knowledge, you went to Southern Utah?
Yeah. Went to Southern Utah for school.
Are you Mormon?
I grew up Mormon.
Really?
I did.
No shit.
I'm not Mormon anymore.
I didn't see that coming.
I don't feel like people expect that from me, though.
Judgy of me, but is your mom Mormon? Well, how'd that come about?
I mean, yeah. So my mom grew up Mormon. My grandparents Mormon.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, Mormon from Utah.
Okay.
I would say though, and that's kind of what I was telling you about my mom allowing me to have that freedom of beliefs, is that in her house, of course, we had to go to church and different things like that, but she still encouraged me to try to find my own truth and still ask questions. But I spent a lot of the summers with my grandparents in Utah, and I felt like that was when I really got like the full Mormon influence.
Oh,
but
okay.
I feel like now my mom's probably on a similar journey that I had been a couple of years ago of just figuring out what exactly it is that she believes. And yeah, I don't regret anything about it though, or resent anything about it. I feel like growing up Mormon gave me a good framework for navigating life. Yeah. Taught me a lot of good lessons. I've met a lot of really great people. But yeah, I feel like people probably don't expect that from
Mormons
me.
Are great people. I've had some great friends throughout my life. To this day, I know some, and when it comes to religions or beliefs or anything, I don't judge anybody who does what they want. Whatever helps you be a good person in the world.
That's how I feel.
That's all I care about. As
Exactly.
long as you're not harming people, pervertive or whatever, or doing drugs and fucking people over. I don't care who you believe in or what you do. Because I think that's the most important part. Whatever helps you find happiness in your self or purpose, all to you. You know what I mean?
For sure. I think it was an interesting period because I was Mormon up until I left to college, and then once I was on my own, and in college, then I had been questioning it for a while. I was like, I don't know that this is for me. I think that I had way too much of a curious mind, and a lot of the questions that I asked had inconsistent answers, and when the answers were inconsistent, I was told to put it on the shelf, and I didn't want to put it on the shelf. I wanted to dive deep into it.
Yeah.
I took a writing and existentialism class in...
I don't even know what that is. Say it again.
Writing and existentialism. So like a deep philosophy class. And I feel like that class just really influenced me to think thoughts about the world and existence in a way that I never had before. And it was a really difficult period to detransition and be like, okay, I don't necessarily believe in this anymore, but what do I believe? What happens after I die? Where am I going if it's not all of these things that I was taught? And so that was a disorienting period for me to figure out what the heck I was doing, what I believed in. I went to a lot of different churches, was open and curious about a lot of different religions at that period of time. But yeah.
You ever been to a Baptist church?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Have you?
Yeah. I don't even know if they're Baptist or Christian. So I was baptized Catholic.
Uh-huh.
Mexican thing, or all Hispanics are all Catholic, whatever, or majority, I'm sorry, I won't get canceled. Whatever, cancel me. But my black side of the family had their own church in LA, in Compton. I don't remember what city it was, but it was a Wormsley church. And I don't remember if it was Baptist or if it was just Christian. I can't remember. I was so young. I used to go, and yeah, black churches are just fun. What was I gonna say to you? I forgot. Oh, so one thing I want to talk about is the TED Talk.
Uh-huh.
So how did you get the opportunity? What was the TED Talk about? And what was like the overall experience? Because a lot of people would love to do a TED Talk.
Yeah. So it was a TEDx talk. It was at my university. And they were the theme was Kaleidoscope of Perspective, which was a perfect fit for what I was studying at the time. The actual time that I gave the TED Talk was a very interesting period. I had actually been living in a camp trailer in a hospital parking lot for 45 days prior to that.
Okay.
My now mother-in-law had some health issues and was life flighted up to Salt Lake. And so my fiance and I dropped everything we were doing, moved to Utah to be there with her during this time. And it was a really, really difficult time. So I actually didn't even know if I was going to be doing the TED Talk. Like I had been preparing for it. I had been writing it for months, but she was in critical condition, and at that point didn't know if she was going to make it. And so I had hesitancies about leaving to drive from Salt Lake to Cedar City to go give the TED Talk. And I almost didn't, but I did end up going, and I'm really grateful that I did. I feel like it was a very enriching experience, and I was really proud of the message that I put together, and just kind of a culmination of the time that I had spent interviewing.
Oh, so the TED Talk was, in a sense, a part about the book you wrote? Well, I know it was way before, but...
No, it was way before the book. The TED Talk was almost 3 years ago now. But
oh, shit, that recent?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not super recent, but I don't know why I thought it was... Go ahead, sorry.
No, it was a while ago now. But yeah, so the TED Talk was on the measurement of human perspective. And so that was the message that I gave, just talking about the interviews that I was doing with people, what I had learned from that, and how we can learn about our perspectives and expand perspectives. And at the time that I was giving the TED Talk, I was in a lot different a headspace, I guess, than I was when I wrote the book. And so at that time, like, I was really trying to collect perspectives and widespread them with the world. I would say, okay, Norian, tell me all about your perspective. I would collect it and then go share it with other people online in podcast format. And then, after going through my journey and just really trying to figure myself out, my book just focused more on self. How can we get wisdom of ourselves? Which is actually a quote that my mentor, or one of my mentors and good friends, his name is Isaac. That's really what changed the trajectory of what I was doing. He said, wisdom is knowledge of the self that allows us to act with more capacity. And for me, that was kind of the moment that I realized this is what I need to be doing, is allowing people to get information and figure out who they are.
Interesting. What, fuck, I had a question. Good question. I forgot it. But,
I got a question for you.
Oh, damn. What's the girl? What's the question? What's up?
Kind of a change of topic, but...
Oh, shit. What's up?
But something that I'm really curious about. So with your experience in, like, falling out of the 4-story window and being in a coma, like, did you feel like you came like face to face with death, and what was that experience like?
Face to face with death. I don't know. I don't think so, because no. I mean, when you think about the accident, what could have happened, you know, the possibilities, yeah, I guess, but I don't remember anything. So I think that is something I am grateful for, because I think if I was awake and coherent, or at least conscious, if you remember, seeing yourself fall from I think that would have been fucked with me to this day.
Yeah.
So, but I was blacked out drunk and don't remember it at all. So I was literally on a party bus, and then I woke up like 3-4 days later in the hospital. So that fucked with me, because I woke up and I'm like, what the like, what? It was almost like I teleported, and then not being able to move. So, you know, I was just stuck to the bed and I couldn't really move my body. So that was frustrating. And there was a point where I thought, like, that's my new reality.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was never going to get better. But only for a short amount of time. Whatever human spirit, whatever's in the world that gave me the inner drive that I do have, I love it, you know, because there was a certain point where I was like, fuck this. I'm going to get out of here by Christmas, which was, so I was in hospital November 9th, and I told myself by Christmas. I got out December 2nd. So I was only in hospital 3 weeks before they cleared me. I was able to walk with a walker and stuff. So I don't know. To answer your question, I don't think so.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
it sounds like a near-death experience. So I'm.
Yeah, it could be.
I'm just curious,
because, like I said, you look at a 4-story window, drop something from there, and see what happens to it. You drop. I don't want nobody to fall from there, but you go drop 10 people from there. I don't know how many will make it out without a serious injury.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have no major injuries to where I'm able to run, jump, work out, do everything like anybody else. So yeah, I don't know. Good question. What else you got?
A lot.
You can ask. Go ahead.
I got 100 of them. I'm just kidding.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Ask away. I like being asked questions. Nobody ever asks me stuff too often.
What do you wish more people asked you about? Like, I feel like we're simultaneously living two different versions of reality. There's me showing up here in this physical world, being with you, but then there's also the reality that exists within my mind that I'm living 24/7 that nobody else gets to see besides me. And I think it's really interesting. Like, what do you wish more people asked you about that you could share?
Damn. I don't know. That's a good question. Cause I'm fairly open, and I don't know. When people ask me stuff, it's usually with the drinking, with the accident, things of that nature. But I really can't answer that question. That's real good. Give me a second to think about it. But damn, Grace stumped me on my own show. Hold up. I'm gonna edit this part out. What do I wish people asked me? All right. One thing I got asked. So my accident happened in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And not until 2022, which is 2 years ago now, I went to Seattle for a fitness workshop. A friend of mine named Nick, I went to high school with. Hadn't seen him since high school. I graduated 2009. So it's been, at this point, it had been 13 years. Social media friends, whatever, haven't seen him. But I knew he lived in Seattle. So I reached out to him. Hey, I'm coming to Seattle. You know, I got this workshop, but I got free time. Let's get together. And we get together, and one of the first things he asked me that nobody asked me, he asked how was I, like, emotionally and mentally from the accident. Nobody really ever asked me that.
Yeah.
Friends, coach, nobody really asked that deeper, like, inner question. I almost cried when he asked me. Cause I'm like, damn. Because it felt like a different sense of care and, you know, of how I was. Most people ask, oh, the physical side of things, you know, how was that? Or, you know, the experience. But it was like, damn. So for hear that kind of question, that was like, oh.
Like, he really cared.
Yeah. And it was, of all people, I haven't seen him in X amount of years, but when he asked, I could sense the genuineness of his true, like, interest and care. Like, damn, you got PTSD? Like, how are you? All right? You know? And I was like, shit, bro. Yeah. Because at that point in time, I wasn't really working with my coach yet. So I was my emotions, I'm able to put a wall up in a sense. Like I could be open, share my story, this and that, but I know how to make sure you don't ask too many of the questions that are going to make me think too deeply.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've gotten better with that to where I'm more open to being, share my emotions of things.
Do you feel like you're someone that like really thinks about the emotions, or you like really physically express? Oh, me too.
Yeah, I'm very logical with stuff.
Me too.
Which could be good, you know what I mean? But then sometimes it's me pushing down the emotion side, the feeling part, and just trying to be so logical with my answer, so logical with whatever. Like somebody can ask me a question about something emotionally, but I'll find a logical way to answer it and kind of divert them,
Yeah.
you know? And yeah, it would have to take a real good question asker to fucking figure it out.
It's interesting that you say that, because I feel like that's the period of transition that I'm kind of navigating right now. Is I feel like in many ways, sometimes my coping mechanism is to overanalyze, because it allows me to have that layer of removal and get a bird's eye view on the situation. So I'm not present in the moment. I'm flying above it and analyzing it. And it's become a very comfortable place for me, and I think in a lot of ways has allowed me to do the work that I do. But I'm at the point now where I'm really trying to lean into just being and like experiencing every emotion as it's coming, which has been uncomfortable.
Perfect. And that's great, because I had a conversation with somebody recently about this, how us humans, we do anything we can to avoid discomfort.
Yeah.
And I think you got to become aware of it and stop it. Stop doing it. It's okay to feel discomfort.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel the anger, the sadness. And I think we just do so much to try to avoid discomfort. Not just emotionally, like you hurt my feelings, but people who try to work out, it gets uncomfortable, they stop. You know, somebody breaks up with you, you try to avoid that discomfort and go get into another relationship.
Yeah.
Or you go watch porn, or you go try to hang out with your friends, get drunk, anything you can to avoid that discomfort. And I just wish more people would understand it's okay.
Yeah.
And
I
sit
think
with
it's
it.
I think it's good, and I think you find out a lot about yourself about like just sitting in things that make you uncomfortable, and especially with emotional experiences are intense.
What you said just now about sitting with it, I remember when I give up alcohol, or decided to give up alcohol. And once you give up alcohol, not saying you can't hang out with people or stuff like that, but for me, I had to remove myself and not go into certain settings at first, just because I wasn't confident in my willpower. So then I would be at home and I would just be sitting there, and that shit's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. Like, I challenge anybody who's watching this to do it. Like, if you haven't done it before, try to spend not just one day, but try to really spend consecutive weekends or your free time doing nothing. Not Netflix, not YouTube, just sit there. It's uncomfortable. You'll feel it. I would sit there and I feel it like, fuck, you want to grab your phone so bad. It's like crack. It's crazy.
Yeah.
How addicted we are to entertainment, or constantly being stimulated.
Yes.
And once I decided to remove the stimulation, that's really where my growth began as a just person in general. Like, I was able to understand myself a little better and feel myself a little better. And those thoughts go, it's like I said, it's uncomfortable. Those thoughts are going all over in your head. It's like what's that movie? Like Harry Potter? What are those things called? The mentors?
I don't know.
I don't, like all those black things just swirling around, bro. And you're just like, oh my God. And, you know, I used to want to grab my phone so bad, like,
Yeah.
But then I'm like, I'm going to grab my phone, Instagram, okay. Twitter, okay. Facebook, okay. Back to Instagram, okay. Hinge, okay. Bumble. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, no, bro, it's okay to be bored.
To be still.
Exactly.
I recently had an experience. I went camping last weekend. I love camping.
It looked fun.
Yeah, it's a good time. Disconnect from everything. Nobody can get a hold of you. I lay in the dirt, grounding, you know?
That's how it was for me when I went to Costa Rica. So I went to Costa Rica for my birthday back in April, and they're saying is pura vida, like simple life, you know, slow life, and that's how it is out there.
Yeah.
And with American phones, your service is sketch, like you need Wi-Fi. So a lot of the times I had to just walk the beach and just be. I mean, it's obviously beautiful, the beach and warm water, but I like the concept of not just being.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not always doing something.
That's actually something it's interesting that you say that, because that's been on my mind a lot recently.
Moving to Costa Rica?
No.
Oh. That's on my mind.
I mean, that too.
Shit, it's on my mind.
I think I'd probably go to Hawaii. But
Okay.
Just being. Like, I think that throughout life, and especially because social media is a lot of mirrors, a lot of examples of how your life could be or should be. And it's always be followed by something. Be more this, be like whatever, fill in the blank. And I think just leaning into the concept of be, period, full stop, like outside of any external influence, who are you as a being, and leaning into that. And I think that it's something that's kind of been a little bit difficult for me, but I'm having a fun time exploring that space.
I think, yeah. I mean, when I look at your social media and stuff like that, I haven't seen nobody really doing or talk about the stuff you do. I've never heard nobody have a platform and use it to talk about the perspective of your life and all the things you talk about. So that's very interesting. You're definitely in a different, I guess, niche or category or whatever that I haven't seen I really haven't. I can think of. But watch, now that I say it's going to pop up. I already know.
I feel like perspective is more than what people realize at a face value. It's a map to navigate your life. And in my opinion, it's the most valuable asset that you own. It helps you illuminate the path towards self-discovery, mend your past. And I really, like, my goal is to just educate people on what their perspective is capable of and what perspective as a whole is capable of in bringing us all together.
So would you say you're a perspective coach?
Yeah. Perspective coach Sadie?
Yeah. When does your workshop or program start?
To be determined.
Okay.
To be determined.
Now, out of all the 100 questions, so those who don't know, her book is Dimensions, Reimagining the Power of Human Perspective. So, 100 questions to help you understand your perspective. Of the 100, do you have a favorite?
Ooh. Yeah.
What is it?
I think that the question that's probably my favorite is, how do you speak to yourself? I think there's a lot of different questions that speak to me throughout the book as I'm navigating different periods, but that question is a memory that I return to often, because I would say that my self-talk was very harmful. The way that I spoke to myself, the way that I interacted with my thoughts, and there was an experience that I had that really was a catalyst for change in the way that I spoke to myself. I was completely spiraling, and I happened to be around my mom. And in the middle of our conversation, as I'm saying all types of horrible things about myself, and, you know, I don't deserve this, or I'm beating myself up, she paused the conversation and she went and grabbed one of my baby pictures. I was about 2 years old in the picture. And she held it up to me and she said, say it to her. Say everything that you were just saying about yourself now. I want you to stop and I want you to pause. And I want you to look at this picture and say it to her. And I couldn't. Like, of course I couldn't. And looking at that picture really broke my heart. And it was a good reminder of, if I can't speak to myself like that, why am I speaking to myself like that right now? And I think it was just a good reminder of the compassion that we deserve now, even throughout all the trials and tribulations of life. And so I would say that that's probably one of my favorite questions. But there are also other questions in the book that I think can really help people piece together certain things. Question number 4, how were you praised as a child, was actually one of the most viewed questions that I did throughout the question series. And it's interesting because I ran a poll on, you know, how were you praised as a child? Were you praised for achievements or outcomes? Were you praised for looks? Were you not praised at all? And 11,000 people responded to that poll, and over 30% of them said that they were praised for achievements and outcomes. And I think that's really evident in society and basing all of your worth in what you do as opposed to who you are.
That's crazy. I was low-key praised just for being the first grandson.
You made it here.
For real, on the black side of my family, everybody loved me because I was the first one. The Mexican side of the family, I think because I was only a black one too on the Mexican side, so they praised me for that too. Call me, I'm bald now, but they just call me curly top and marble head, which is funny because now that I'm bald, for sure I got a marble head. With this book, so for somebody who grabs it, because even you asking that question, I was thinking to myself, how would I talk to myself, or how was I praised? It could be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? What's advice you will give somebody? They buy this book, which you all are, all million of you. We're getting a million views.
Yeah.
How would you tell them, or advice you would give them to approach this book? Because it sounds like it's going to get uncomfortable and really make you, dig in there.
I actually put how to use this book in the book.
Oh, okay. Shit. Excuse me.
So the book walks you through 4 different phases. So it starts with beginning, and there's only one question in the begin section because I feel like that's really all you need to get started. First question, what do you need to forgive yourself for? I feel like self-forgiveness is what allows you to turn a page, start a new chapter. And so by making that decision to arrive in the present and forgive yourself for any mistakes of the past is what's really going to allow you to go on the journey of the book. And then the next phase is acknowledging. So a lot of the questions that I just said, how do you speak to yourself? How were you praised as a child? Are there any relationships that left a scar on your perspective? How did your parents express their emotions? There's a lot of really hard-hitting questions in that acknowledge phase. And specifically in the section of how to use the book, I outlined this is not a time of problem solving. I think that we're so problem solution oriented that immediately when I uncover it, I want to try to fix it. And the whole first third of the book is not about fixing anything. It's just allowing yourself to release and express however it is that you're feeling. There doesn't need to be a solution. And then from there, once you've extracted all the information, there's a section of releasing parts of your perspective that no longer serve you. For example, what were you taught to believe? In the release section, is this still what you want to believe? Is this belief helping you navigate your life in the way that you want to? Is there any resentment that you're ready to let go of? Is there anything you're ready to forgive your parents for? And so allowing you to release what no longer serves you. And then the last part of the book is rebuilding a perspective that does serve you. And I really wanted people to go through a full circle journey throughout the book. I didn't want to unravel all their wounds in their past and leave them with no sense of hope.
Yeah.
And so the last questions are really tuning into that intuition and that sense of self and confidence of, this is why I view the world, and it's important. All of our perspectives together are what drives innovation and creativity and what advances society forward, and everybody's perspective is important. And I think just acknowledging that perspective is not a zero sum, like the compilation of experiences that make you who you are doesn't negate who I am. And I feel like that book really allows people to lean into the fact that your truth can exist in its entirety, and it does. And it looks very different than mine.
Damn, I'm excited to read it.
Thank you.
So as we wrap up here, a question I like to ask my guests as we finish up is, for somebody who's watching this, what is one piece of information that you would give somebody that's looking to transform and grow today? Short and sweet. Hit them with a boom.
Why do I feel like this is hard? I'm like, what? I only get to say one thing. I think it would probably be to trust yourself. I think that, especially in today's world with the exposure to so much information that we're grasping everywhere to try to have people tell us realities that we already know, I think just continue to lean into your intuition and trust yourself to make the best decisions for your life.
I love that. Well put. All right, guys, I'm going to put the link to purchase her book, Dimensions, in the description. I'm also going to put her Instagram handle. Make sure you follow her. She shares great content about helping you change your perspective. Once again, if you are looking to change your drinking habits, ready to take back your power, I have a free webinar on Zoom September 17th. The link is in the description. And then something I want to let you know is that it's all right to be unbalanced in life. It's okay to have a moment or phase of your life feeling unbalanced, losing a little bit of sleep here and there, having to work a little longer than you used to. That unbalance is required to get you to that next level. Once you get to that next level and you're settled, then you can start coasting a little bit. You got to be unbalanced to be great, baby. 2 words. Get book. Later. Oh.